Thanks for joining today. It's good to be here. My name is Lisa Druke. I'm a retired process engineer. I actually retired in December from Paul Corporation. You may have heard of them. They're from out of Cortland, New York, PALL. Anyway, they manufacture filtration equipment, and I worked for them for over 20 years, and I was in their water division doing drinking water, wastewater, industrial water projects all over the U.S. and Canada. And I had a really good career. I don't know, I love water. I guess I found my love. But I wanted to share with you one particular project that I worked on that was related to PFAS that really had an impression on me and truly is why I'm standing here to talk to you today. This project was in the state of Alabama, and our company was awarded a project to provide advanced treatment equipment. And this particular community, they were given a no drinking advisory, and they had a no drinking advisory, which means cooking, drinking water is basically don't drink the water. And it was a real awakening for me to walk into that situation. They was contaminated with PFAS, and how did they determine that their water was contaminated with PFAS? Well, basically, people in the community were getting sick. They had very high rates of cancer in the community, and they investigated it, and they traced it back to the PFAS coming from their drinking water. And it was a similar story to what Todd and Don, they just talked about, where the industrial plant is dumping into the river, and then downstream, the drinking water plant is drawing from the river and goes through a conventional plant. The PFAS doesn't get removed, goes on to the customers, and they drink it, and then they get sick. So, fortunately, we were able to provide this advanced treatment. This was part of an overall larger project, and we commissioned it, started it up, and no PFAS coming out. So we installed microfiltration and reverse osmosis equipment, and it was basically below the detectable limits. And the community, they were made whole again. They could drink their water. And so when I heard about this Micron project coming, I could see, perhaps the similarities. So I wanted to start, I have 3 slides, and I wanted to start with Onondaga County, and where do we stand on PFAS here with our drinking water. And the Safe Drinking Water Act actually required that all drinking water plants in the United States, I think they were communities maybe greater than 3,300 people, they were required to measure PFAS. And this was between 2023 and 2025. They all needed to measure PFAS, 29 compounds, 29 different compounds. And Onondaga County, they were included in that, and they were required to measure it. So they measured in 2023. They measured quarterly for the whole year of 2023, the 29 compounds. And their results came out really good. They were actually below the minimum reporting level for the analysis, and that includes the Lake Ontario water treatment plant, and they were required to measure at the discharge of the plant. So this is like at the clear wells, and their measurements came out really good. I heard that Lake Ontario has PFAS in the water, 2 parts per trillion. They have actually granular activated carbon. That's a process, and that does remove legacy PFAS. It doesn't remove the short chain, but it removes legacy. So the fact that they have this, extra treatment in their process is a benefit for us. But anyway, I felt good about that. I'm sitting at the computer and I'm looking up these results. It's available to the public. They're required to report back to the EPA these results, and it's a file called it's EPA Data Finder. If you're interested in looking at it, EPA Data Finder. That's where the EPA keeps all the records for all the drinking water plants that have measured under that program between 2023 and 2025. The next time they'll have to measure is in 2027. They will be required to measure the two that Todd and Don have talked about, the two PFOS and PFOA, which Micron is not using in their process. So they're not using PFOS and PFOA. In their EIS, the environmental impact statement, they stated that they've moved away from that. And so the two that are being monitored there, that may not help us, in terms of, knowing are we good, are we not good. But anyway, at the moment, I think we're good with our drinking water. So moving into the next steps going on with Micron and the industrial wastewater treatment plant, I did project design review of the information that was available to the public to review, and I concur with Todd and Don that they're going to have a biological treatment in this industrial treatment plant, and the county will be responsible for it. And basically, it's going to remove, VOD, COD, nitrate. It's going to take care of the constituents that they're required to per the Speedies permit, so they can discharge to the river. But that equipment is not designed for removing PFAS, and this is what Todd and Don stated. So basically, Micron needs to do the removing. It's up to Micron to remove the PFAS before they send the water over. And that Speedies permit that the DEC finalized very recently, it included the 40 compounds. It had limits for the top two, which Micron isn't even using. And so, it's going to be up to Micron. It's really going to be up to Micron. And we can go to the next slide, maybe.
Sure.
So one of the next steps is Onondaga County will soon issue this industrial wastewater discharge permit. This is a really big step. This is one of the points where Onondaga County can actually do something. And perhaps there's an opportunity that they could use best management practices. Like they could do best management practices, work with the DEC to define those limits and include them in the industrial wastewater discharge permit, which Micron will be required to follow. So they can do that. They need to mandate. They need to mandate limits for the 40 compounds. They need to take these measurements that Todd and Don are talking about, absorbable organic fluorine. This will measure those PFAS compounds outside of the 40, which is what Micron's using. So, and then Micron, they really should disclose the PFAS compounds they're using. They should disclose them. Limits should be set, and Micron should control to those limits. It's like measure and control, measure and control. I mean, it sounds really simple, but Micron won't do it. If limits aren't set, Micron, they're not going to do it. So, I live in Fayetteville, and my drinking water comes from the Lake Ontario water treatment plant. That's where I get my water from. And, if Micron is discharging to the Oneida River, which ends up going to Lake Ontario, and it gets contaminated, goes through the waste treatment plant, or not the waste treatment, the water treatment plant, comes to my faucet, and these are compounds that are outside of the 40, they're not being detected. I mean, it's like we don't need another Alabama. We know what's going on. We need to preempt what happened in the state of Alabama and other places that we know about. So I think that's what I wanted to share, and I hope that was informative for everyone.